The whispered fear, the shadow of unknown terror. The trading station Nexus Prime floated like a metal island in the vast darkness of space. For decades, it had been the meeting place for the galaxy's most dangerous beings. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, and criminals from 100 different worlds gathered here to trade weapons, share information, and plan their next deadly missions. The air inside was thick with smoke from alien cigars and the tension of barely controlled violence. But tonight, something was different. The usual loud conversations had turned to whispers. The confident swagger of battle-hardened warriors had become nervous glances over shoulders. Fear, that rare emotion among these fearless killers, was spreading like a plague through the station's dark corridors. Krex, a towering reptilian creature with scars covering his green scales, sat at the center of the main tavern. His yellow eyes, which had seen 1,000 battles, now held something they had never held before: uncertainty. Around his table, the most powerful mercenary leaders in the galaxy leaned forward, their voices barely above a whisper. 3 more fleets vanished last week, growled Vash, a creature with 4 arms and skin like black stone. The Crimson Raiders, the Star Reapers, and the Iron Fang Consortium, all gone without a trace. No distress signals, no wreckage, nothing. Krex's clawed hand gripped his drink tighter. That makes 17 fleets in 2 months. The best mercenary groups in the galaxy, just gone. Something is hunting us, and we don't even know what it looks like. A smaller alien with blue skin and large eyes spoke up nervously. My sources say it's the work of a new species. They call themselves humans. They look almost like us, but smaller, weaker. How can such creatures destroy our greatest warriors? The table fell silent. The word humans had been whispered in dark corners for weeks, but no one wanted to believe it. How could a species that looked so ordinary, so fragile, pose a threat to beings who had conquered star systems? Suddenly, the lights in the tavern flickered. Through the massive windows that looked out into space, a shadow passed silently by. It was too large to be a transport ship, too quiet to be a freighter. The mercenaries watched in growing terror as more shadows appeared, moving with purpose and precision around the station. "They're here," someone whispered. The first encounter. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Phantom, her calm brown eyes studying the readings on her screen. At 35, she had already earned the respect of her crew through dozens of successful missions. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her uniform was clean but practical. She looked like a librarian or a teacher, not the leader of humanity's most elite strike force. "Commander, we have visual confirmation of the target station," reported Lieutenant Torres from his position at the scanner station. 17 large vessels docked, multiple smaller craft in the area. Estimated 3,000 hostile combatants aboard. Sarah nodded slowly. The humans had been watching this station for weeks, learning the patterns of the mercenaries who used it as their base. Unlike the aliens, who relied on brute force and overwhelming firepower, humans preferred to study their enemies first. They learned their weaknesses, their fears, their habits. Knowledge was a weapon more powerful than any laser cannon. "Signal the other ships," Sarah commanded. "Begin Phase 1. Silent approach, minimal energy signatures. We want them to know we're here, but not how many of us there are." The human fleet moved like ghosts through space. Their ships, painted in special materials that absorbed light and energy, became nearly invisible against the black void. This was human technology at its finest. Not bigger guns or thicker armor, but innovation and intelligence applied to warfare. On Nexus Prime, alarms began to sound. The mercenaries rushed to their battle stations, but their sensors could barely detect the approaching threat. The humans appeared and disappeared on their screens like phantoms. Impossible to target, impossible to predict. Krex grabbed the communication device with his clawed hands. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves. This is neutral territory." Sarah's voice came through the speakers, clear and calm. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Force. You have been marked for judgment. Your crimes against peaceful worlds end today." The mercenaries looked at each other in confusion. The voice sounded so normal, so human. Where was the roar of a great beast? Where was the mechanical coldness of a war machine? How could someone who sounded like their neighbor from down the street strike such fear into the hearts of the galaxy's most dangerous criminals? "You think you can threaten us?" Krex snarled into the communicator. "We are the Iron Claw Mercenary Alliance. We have fought wars across 100 systems. What makes you think a handful of humans can defeat us?" There was a pause. Then Sarah's voice returned, and there was something in her tone that made even the bravest mercenaries feel cold inside. "Mr. Krex, we know about the massacre on Pelion II. We know about the slave markets on Xerion Prime. We know about the children you killed on New Geneva. You ask what makes us think we can defeat you. We don't think we can defeat you. We know we already have." The demonstration of power. What happened next became legend among the mercenaries who survived to tell the tale. The human ships didn't attack with massive explosions or overwhelming firepower. Instead, they did something far more terrifying. They demonstrated complete control. One by one, the mercenary ships found their weapons systems shutting down. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply turned off by some invisible force. Their communication systems began broadcasting embarrassing personal messages between crew members. Their life support systems flickered on and off, never quite failing but always threatening to. Sarah watched from her bridge as panic spread through the enemy fleet. "Commander," asked Lieutenant Torres, "shouldn't we just destroy them? We have the firepower." Sarah shook her head. "Destruction is easy, Lieutenant. Fear is much more powerful. When we destroy a fleet, we eliminate a few hundred enemies. When we terrify a fleet and let them escape, we create thousands of allies who will spread our reputation across the galaxy." The humans had learned something that the mercenaries never understood. The mind was the most important battlefield. While aliens focused on building bigger weapons and stronger armor, humans had perfected the art of psychological warfare. They had studied the fears and weaknesses of every alien species they encountered. They knew exactly how to break their enemies' will to fight without firing a single shot. On Nexus Prime, the mercenaries watched in helpless terror as their ships were toyed with like children's toys. Krex's own flagship, the mighty Bloodfang, found itself spinning slowly in space, its artificial gravity fluctuating wildly. The crew stumbled around the corridors, too dizzy to man their battle stations. "How are they doing this?" demanded Vash, his forearms shaking with rage and fear. No one had an answer. The humans' technology was unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't just advanced, it was completely different. Where aliens built machines of war, humans built machines of precision. Where aliens sought to overpower their enemies, humans sought to outwit them. The growing legend. After 2 hours of being helplessly manipulated, the mercenary fleet received a final message from Commander Chen. "You will leave this sector within the next 24 hours. You will spread the word to every mercenary, pirate, and criminal organization in the galaxy. The age of preying on the innocent is over. Humanity is watching. We know where you are. We know what you've done, and we will find you." The human ships vanished as silently as they had appeared, leaving the mercenaries alone with their fear and confusion. Slowly, painfully, their systems came back online. But the damage was done, not to their ships, but to their confidence. Krex stood in his command center, staring out at the empty space where the human fleet had been. His hand shook as he poured himself a drink. In 50 years of warfare, he had never felt so helpless, so completely outmatched. "Sir," one of his officers approached nervously, "what are our orders?" Krex was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke in a voice that barely concealed his terror. "Send word to all allied fleets. Avoid all human territories. Avoid all ships that might be human. These creatures, they're not like us. They don't just fight to win. They fight to control. They fight to dominate without destroying. They're hunters, and we are the prey. Word spread quickly through the criminal underworld. The humans were coming, and they were unlike any enemy the galaxy had ever seen. They looked ordinary, almost fragile, but they possessed something more dangerous than claws or fangs or advanced weapons. They possessed the ability to make their enemies defeat themselves. In the depths of space, far from the light of any star, the human fleet continued its mission. Sarah Chen stood at her window, looking out at the stars, knowing that somewhere in that vast darkness, fear was spreading. The mercenaries had ruled through terror for too long. Now it was time for them to experience terror themselves. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity decided that enough was enough. And the mercenaries, for all their strength and weapons and experience, were about to discover that the most dangerous hunters were the ones who looked the most harmless. The hunt begins. The Council of Fear. 3 weeks after the incident at Nexus Prime, the largest gathering of mercenary leaders in galactic history took place on the fortress world of Grimbold. The planet was a massive asteroid that had been hollowed out and turned into an impregnable stronghold. Its metal walls were 3 miles thick, its weapons could destroy entire fleets, and its shields had never been penetrated. Yet even here, in the safest place in the known galaxy, the mercenary leaders felt afraid. General Vorth, Supreme Commander of the Crimson Empire, paced back and forth in the great war room. His massive frame, covered in battle armor, cast intimidating shadows on the walls. But his voice betrayed his nervousness. The situation is worse than we thought. 7 more fleets have vanished. The Silent Death, the Star Burners, even the legendary Black Phoenix Squadron. All gone. Around the circular table sat the most feared beings in the galaxy. Creatures with the power to level planets, destroy civilizations, and command armies of millions. Yet they whispered like frightened children in the dark. Zara, an information broker known for her vast network of spies, leaned forward. Her silver skin shimmered in the dim light as she spoke. My sources have gathered more intelligence about these humans. They don't just destroy our fleets. They study them first. They learn our tactics, our weaknesses, our fears. Then they use that knowledge against us. Krex, still shaken from his encounter at Nexus Prime, nodded grimly. They got inside our heads, made us feel helpless without even damaging our ships significantly. It's psychological warfare on a level we've never seen. A new voice spoke from the shadows. Perhaps that's because you're thinking about this wrong. The mercenaries turned to see a figure step into the light. It was Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the United Earth Space Force, but they didn't know that. To them, he appeared to be just another alien, his human features disguised by a sophisticated holographic projector. "Who are you?" demanded General Vorth, his hand moving to his weapon. Marcus smiled calmly. "Just someone who's been listening and learning. You see, you're all making the same mistake. You think this is about military superiority. It's not. It's about evolution." The room fell silent. Marcus continued, his voice carrying the quiet confidence that marked all human officers. "For millennia, you've ruled through fear and strength. You became the apex predators of the galaxy. But evolution never stops. Eventually, something comes along that's better adapted to the environment than you are." "And you think these humans are that something?" asked Zora, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. Marcus nodded. "I know they are, because I've studied them too. They don't just fight with weapons. They fight with their minds. They turn your own strengths against you. They make you defeat yourselves." Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout Grimbold. The massive screens around the war room flickered to life, showing space around the fortress. The mercenaries gasped in horror at what they saw. The impossible siege. Surrounding Grimbold was the largest human fleet anyone had ever imagined. Hundreds of ships hung in the darkness like silver stars, their sleek forms barely visible against the black void. But it wasn't their numbers that terrified the mercenaries. It was how they had gotten there. Grimhold's sensors were the most advanced in the galaxy, capable of detecting a single ship from 10 light-years away. Yet somehow, an entire human armada had appeared without triggering a single alarm. General Thorne's voice came through the communication system, calm and authoritative. "This is General Robert Thorne of the United Earth Space Force. Grimhold Fortress, you are surrounded. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared." General Vorth snarled into his communicator. "You dare threaten Grimhold? This fortress has never fallen. We have weapons that can crack moons, shields that have stopped entire armadas." "Yes," came Thorne's reply, "you do. And that's exactly why you're going to surrender." The mercenaries looked at each other in confusion. What did that mean? They got their answer moments later. The fortress's main weapon, a massive cannon capable of destroying planets, began to move on its own. Slowly, impossibly, it turned toward Grimhold itself. "That's not possible," whispered Vorth. "The targeting system is hardwired. It can't target the fortress." Marcus, still disguised among them, smiled grimly. "You're thinking like mercenaries. Humans don't just see weapons as tools of destruction. They see them as systems to be understood, controlled, and repurposed." The main cannon wasn't the only system turning against them. Throughout the fortress, defensive weapons began targeting internal systems. Life support fluctuated wildly. Gravity shifted unpredictably, sending mercenaries tumbling through corridors. Communication systems broadcast embarrassing personal conversations for all to hear. But the most terrifying thing was the silence from the human fleet. They didn't fire a single shot. They didn't need to. They had turned Grimhold into their weapon. The art of human warfare. On the bridge of the UES Liberator, General Thorne watched the chaos unfolding within the fortress. At 60, he was a veteran of countless battles, his gray hair and weathered face telling the story of a lifetime spent protecting humanity. But his eyes were sharp and calculating, missing nothing. "Sir," reported Commander Lisa Park, his chief tactical officer, "all systems within the fortress are under our control. Their weapons, their life support, their communications, everything." Thorne nodded approvingly. Phase 2 complete. Begin Phase 3. What the mercenaries didn't understand was that the humans had been preparing for this moment for months. While the aliens focused on building bigger weapons and stronger defenses, human engineers had been studying their technology, looking for weaknesses and backdoors. Every system in Grimhold had been infiltrated by microscopic human nanobots, introduced through routine supply deliveries over the past year. These tiny machines had worked their way into every circuit, every processor, every piece of equipment in the fortress. The mercenaries had built Grimhold to be impregnable from the outside. They had never considered that the threat might come from within. "Commander Park," Thorne said quietly, "open a channel to all mercenary vessels in the area." When the channel opened, Thorne's voice carried across space to every ship, every station, every mercenary base within 50 light-years. "This is General Robert Thorne. You are witnessing the fall of Grimhold, the supposedly unconquerable fortress. We have accomplished this without firing a single shot, without losing a single human life." He paused, letting the words sink in. "This is not a demonstration of our weapons. This is a demonstration of our philosophy. We don't destroy our enemies. We render them irrelevant." The psychology of dominance. Inside Grimhold, panic was spreading like wildfire. Mercenaries who had faced death 1,000 times without flinching were now running through corridors in terror. The fortress's own systems had become their enemy, and there was nowhere to hide. Marcus dropped his disguise, his holographic projector flickering off to reveal his human features. The mercenary leaders stared at him in shock and rage. "You," snarled Krex. "You're one of them." Marcus nodded calmly. "Captain Marcus Rodriguez, United Earth Space Force, Psychological Warfare Division. I've been studying you for months, learning your fears, your weaknesses, your decision-making patterns." General Vorth drew his weapon, a massive energy cannon that could punch through starship armor. "I'll kill you myself." Marcus didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. "Go ahead. Pull the trigger. See what happens." Vorth's finger hesitated on the trigger. Something in Marcus's absolute calm unnerved him. What if the weapon had been tampered with? What if it would explode in his hands? What if this was another human trap? That moment of hesitation was all Marcus needed. "You see, that's the difference between us. You fight with anger, with emotion, with pride. We fight with our minds. We make you doubt yourselves. We make you afraid of your own weapons, your own plans, your own abilities." The psychological warfare was complete. The most feared warriors in the galaxy stood frozen, afraid to act, afraid to think, afraid of the consequences of any decision they might make. The new order, General Thorne's final transmission, reached every corner of the galaxy. "The age of mercenary rule is over. You have preyed upon the innocent for too long. You have terrorized peaceful worlds, enslaved populations, and spread fear throughout the stars." The human fleet began to disperse, each ship heading toward a different mercenary stronghold, a different pirate base, a different center of criminal activity. The message was clear. Nowhere was safe from human reach. "We offer you a choice," Thorne continued. "Surrender your weapons and submit to galactic justice, or face the consequences. But understand this. We are not like the enemies you have faced before. We don't just win battles. We end wars." In the months that followed, mercenary fleets across the galaxy began surrendering without a fight. The word had spread. The humans were unlike any enemy they had ever encountered. They looked harmless, seemed weak, appeared ordinary. But they possessed something more dangerous than any weapon: the ability to turn their enemies' own strengths against them. Sarah Chen, now promoted to admiral, stood on the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at a galaxy that was slowly becoming safer. The mercenaries had learned to fear a species they had once dismissed as insignificant. But the humans had learned something too. Sometimes the greatest victory came not from destroying your enemies, but from making them destroy themselves. In the vast darkness of space, a new legend was born. The legend of the silent hunters who looked like prey but fought like predators. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.